Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sales Chatter. New week, new me, right? So you got your co-host Ryan Mohammed, my amazing co-host with me, the founder and CEO and president of RGTX Logistics Solutions, Jeff Dickinson. Good morning, brother. How you doing?
Good, my man. Good. Did you have a good
Yeah.
weekend? Got to ask you that first.
It was a busy weekend. We had some good times with our family and friends, and for us, I can't believe it's the 9th. I wrote that down today on my to-do list. That today's the 9th already, so it's coming up there, man. What about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I had a good weekend, nice and relaxing, and just ready, pumped up for this week. So you know what? Let's do this.
Welcome to the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
So I want to say good morning to Lisa. Before we actually get started, Jeff,
Yeah.
Lisa is actually doing something amazing starting from tomorrow, I believe. She's actually
Uganda.
going away. Yeah, she's going to Uganda, and that all came because of being a logistics professional that she is. So shout out to Lisa. Hope you have an amazing, safe trip. We'll miss you. It'll be cool to kind of see you on the chats, getting the replays and things like that. But yeah, exactly. Like take lots of pictures. That's going to be amazing to kind of see from everything that's kind of going on. But Jeff, we had an amazing week last week when we were talking about training. We kept consistent all 4 days of the week because Monday was a holiday. We talked about training, and you made a post, a nice little segue post on LinkedIn. Can you just go over that, and then we'll just get into today's topic?
Yeah, from the sales training and everything, now you got to move into planning, right? And then you're going to have your strategic approach, and then you're going to have your tactical approach, and how you go about that and the steps that you take is either going to make you or break you. Pretty much simple.
100%. So let's get started. So I feel like, okay, so we got today, we got Monday. I think today, let's start with, let's talk about that, a little bit of that planning. So let me get everybody into that mindset of, hey, you've just finished your training, wherever you are, whether it be a 12-week training like Armstrong Transport Group with Scott, or maybe it's like a 1 to 2 week training, if that at most, at a different brokerage or anything like that. Jeff, let's get into it. What's your favorite thing? What's something that you should be looking at for your planning, any strategic and tactical advances?
I would say first and foremost, we're talking about sales and working for a company, but what's your company when it gets to this strategic part? What is your company's mission and vision? That is so key when it's all part of marketing, branding, and your image, right? Because it's who do you stand for, or what do you stand for? And how are you going to take that value, your own, plus what you just learned in training, and present that to your customers, your prospects? How are you going to deliver that? What are you going to deliver?
I like that a lot. Yeah, I think that's so important because I'll give you actually a quick story about that. It actually happened last week that a customer that we've been set up with, but we never worked with them before. We kind of like did a little bit of talks before, and they literally said they went to our website, they checked us out. They're like, "You guys are legit." We've Googled like their company names, and that's one of the most important things. So I'll actually backtrack a bit. So most places, Jeff, and we're not talking about self-employed here. This is completely, you're an employee, you're getting a salary and things like that, right? In the States, I don't know how it is, but in Canada, you get like a 3-month probation. So it's kind of like you get like basically they get to test drive for like 3 months if you're profitable, like whatever it is, right? But for us here, it's like you get that 3 months to really interview the company, see what they actually are about, rather than you're talking to the HR recruiters who got you that interview. You probably talk to your boss who you're going to be working with. What are some things that you look for? Because like you said, your image, credibility, and brand are so important when it comes to whoever you represent and representing yourself. And the mindset we're talking about here is before you even pick up that phone or you actually send that email specifically, what are some key factors you look for when you were on the logistics side, being a transport manager yourself, and then you work for yourself at RGTX Logistics?
Yeah. So, and that's a great question. And I did a post on Charlie Sappho's CS recruiting post some time ago, and so I reversed this, right? We talk about interviewing and getting the right talent to fit the right role and the right seat in your company, right? Well, what's really critical in this whole thing, in this process, is that the individual who is interviewing at this company, it's up to him or her to interview the company as well. It's a perfect time to do that. Reverse that, okay? Because you said it, right? You got 3 months probation where they are testing the waters. Should you be testing the waters as well? Well, you know what? You should have found that out in that interview process, right? A lot of people think it's about the company interviewing you, but it's more about you interviewing the company. You want to make sure that that's a really good fit for you, right? So you're going to ask those questions that you would have asked if you already got the role, right? Ahead of time, and then try to figure out, do I want to work for this company? I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah, straight up. Like that's, and I feel like now we have those resources that you're able to kind of go and interview. Like, you have like websites like Glassdoor where you can actually go and see like reviews and things like that. And I feel like you should have made that decision before you even took the interview. Like if a recruiter, all of us in logistics, we get hit up by recruiters all the time on
Yeah,
LinkedIn. Right? So when you're having that conversation with them, if it's something that you want to pursue, you should be looking at those things. So I think like when it comes to training,
yeah,
Jeff, before you even pick up that call, you got to kind of figure it out. And what's I kind of want to open this situation with you. What's
yeah.
the difference between somebody who's like completely brand new into the industry for their mindset and planning versus someone who's experienced where they've maybe jumped over to another company for either some more money, more opportunity, maybe there was a ceiling at the previous company, so now they can actually have some growth.
Right.
Let's start with you, someone coming brand new into the industry. What does that look like to you?
Sure, and I did that in one of my roles that I had when I was managing an operation. You look for determination. You look for people that have drive. Right? Skill can be taught. Skill
Yes.
can be taught afterwards. But I think the most important thing in any hiring process, does the person have the drive, the determination, and focus to be successful in the role he or she takes? That's first and foremost for me, because I know if they have that thought process, you can easily teach a skill,
Mhm.
because they're going to be eager to learn, and that's what you want, right? And then what they'll do is self-development, and they'll take what they've been taught and they'll create their own little things, right? It's like, again, on that strategic plan, that those core values, whether it's the value of the company, and I asked Scott about that, which is more important? Is it the individual value that you bring, or is it the company value? And that's a pretty tough thing, because they always say when you go into companies, and you've probably seen it, usually their mission statement is on a wall, someplace that you can
Mhm.
visualize. You can see that mission. Here's why we're here. This is what we do. You know, so how are you going to take that, and then present that plus your own?
And I think you look at that mission statement and you look at the people. So you've come out of training, you've done all your forms, you're ready to basically go like work out. I don't know, the conversation that you and I had last week about how we're planning out this 4 weeks was like it kind of related like to battle, right? Like I love that personally, like so we've talked about like picking up your weapon or deciding which weapon you're going to use, which would be the
Exactly.
prospecting tool for next week and going into battle in that mindset. Um, I know with Dan, one of Dan's training that I've kind of did was like he focuses on like your 5 big moves. So before you even pick up the phone call or before you decide what you want to do, you kind of like decide like, hey, what are the 5 big moves that I need to do to get to where I kind of want to get to, and look within. I think Jeff, a big thing is when it comes to mindset for me is a lot of stuff done off the clock. And when I say that, that's like with your family, with your wife, your husband, things like that. Understanding like, hey, let's map this out. Like I know my wife and I, we've been talking this year big about like our financial goals and things like that. Those conversations were in regards to your career should be happening before. And I always kind of believe like, hey, everyone should read like The Art of War is probably one of the best books out there for something like this, right? And I think, strategic and then looking at tactical based on kind of your posts and things like that. Can you give the audience some strategical mindsets, some ideas of what they should be looking at as soon as they kind of come out of training before making that first call?
Well, and you brought up a great point. When you started talking about the personal aspects of you discussing with your family and everything, really starts there. It's to get that mindset where you're not trying to create that pressure for you, because look, let's face it, when you get into that new role, there's an immense amount of pressure that you're going to be going through, right? And it's how you take that and what you bring home to your family, and then how you discuss that, and how are you going to take the next day? What do you have to do, from day one, what you learn, and try to comprehend that, and then bring that back to day two. And you're doing that consistently, right? Because you got that 3 month of probation. You want to succeed, or do you want to succeed? That's the question right there. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to succeed, but how are you going to succeed in that role? What do you have to do personally, not on the business side, but personally, by looking at you from the inside out and saying, okay, is this what I want to do?
Yeah.
Where do I want to go from here, kind of deal, right? So you're battling. You are battling with yourself, your family, life, work balance. You're trying to create that, and then do your role. So it's very, very difficult. Like when I started out, I was just gung ho, didn't know what the heck I was going to do in the warehouse, and then things started evolving. I started talking to my wife, girlfriend at the time, and then my boss and all that. So those are the kind of things that you have to do. How am I going to learn this role? What questions am I going to ask? I mean, that's all part of it.
And a big game changer for me, Jeff, is that we talk about like the family part of it too. And then for me, the other part was actually like your teammates, like your not necessarily employees, but like your operations team. Like what worked big for me was like the first day, I went out to lunch with like the person who's gonna basically be working in conjunction with myself, find out what their values are. And I think that's something that's really worked for me, Jeff, is that to be able to have a conversation with somebody that's not about business, not about work, finding out what their values are, finding out what gets them up in the morning, whether it be they got some kids, or maybe they're saving for a trip to go to somewhere else, or different things in life, so you can kind of like get that niche together. Because shout out to my lead ops guy, we actually met at a previous place, and that's how we connected. We just got connected. We're kind of similar backgrounds, and we connected, and we do really well together because we got that time to understand who we are as people. And I think that's where you can kind of define where the strengths and the weaknesses, because you and I can both agree not everything's going to be peachy in logistics. You're going to have something goes wrong, right? We're not in that business, right? So, and I feel like you should do that as well with like your manager. Outside of logistics, I remember when I worked at a ticket broker, the first day, the CEO always takes out the new person to lunch. You go there, you hang out, get to know each other, and it's a CEO, right? So you're kind of figuring out how did they kind of get started, and they're kind of figuring out how you get this started too. And one of the things that you wrote in your post that I thought was really important was who's responsible, as your strategic goal, like who is responsible? And I want to ask you that as well, like who's responsible for.
And that's a good question, but let's just go back. We're talking about planning and mindset. Okay, so I'll tell you exactly the way that I did it. Okay, we gone through the interview. I selected the person or people who I want to bring on board. Number two thing that I did is that I talked to my people. I said, listen, we have a new hire that's coming in board. He or she's going to be sitting with you for the next, the 2 hours in inbound. They're going to sit in claims for 3 hours. They're going to sit in outbound for 2 hours. And then what I want to do is after they appreciate to get your feedback, I want to get your feel. I want to get your understanding, because these guys are in the freaking trenches day in and day out. Who's going to know better about the ability and skill level that the person that you hired that's coming in to fill a seat, who would know more about that individual than anybody else? They would. Okay, that's why you bring those associates into your inner circle, because they're very, very important for your division, your department to move forward. Okay, so that skill. What was the question on that again?
Who's like basically directly responsible? And it could be whether for your planning, your mindset, everything like that.
Sure. Well, it's about individual goals and objectives, right? It's your department's goals and objectives. Where do you need to be? How are you doing? It's what is the strategic and how is the tactical. Okay. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do to create those goals and objectives for those specific individuals that come on board, right? The second thing is that you could do like a SWOT analysis, right? The strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats, right? Well, you have that analytical thing. I mean, I used to do that, the 4 quadrants, right? And then you would write everything down on that, not just on the personal side, but also on the carrier side. What are their strengths, weaknesses? Operations, same thing. You can adapt that to anything within the operations of logistics. So those are the things that you would do, is to try to figure out that, right? And then after you go through that strategic part, you're going to go and create a timeline. When do you want this? How are you going to get this? At what time frame? So obviously, if you're on a 3-month probation, you need to hit different points in week 1 through week 12, right? And you got to set those milestones. Are they being reached? If not, why? How are you going to get there, right? And those are the things that you have to be on top. You just can't release the individual into the department and never talk to them. You have to have that interaction with them and your associates.
And what I really like what you said was that, you're talking about timelines, about like, hey, week 1, week 12, and what goals and things that they need to hit. But another part of that too is like, whose help do I need for them to hit those goals as well? Right.
Tools,
So
you have to have those tools as
you
well.
Got to have those tools.
And that's part of the class training. Because
exactly what I want to talk about.
You have to figure out where are they going to sit in there, because a lot of times in logistics, you get overwhelmed with a lot of work. So you're bringing in another individual to take a little pressure off this individual, that individual. So I always cross-train everybody that came in, because I wanted them to know everybody's job. And then I would circle my crew and make sure they do it every couple of months, just to keep them fresh, in case somebody, is out sick or on vacation or something. Somebody has to fill in there. So, it's all part of that planning.
And that's what we did too at our first job. Everybody kind of got cross-trained, and everybody could basically wear that different hat. Let's say customer service was off today because they're sick. Okay, well, can you just fill in for a little bit there, help out there? Claims, the same thing. Claims is on vacation. How are we going to kind of put the people in the right place? And, I think I've seen, and I'll get your opinion on this. Do organizations run better if they're proactive or reactive?
Proactive. You always should have a proactive mindset. Reactive is that a problem is already over the dam, man. It's down the river, in the ocean. Proactive is attacking it and looking at all the what if scenarios. I say it all the time. I'm adamant about it. Always be proactive. Think of the next steps, and always think that if you're reactive, of course, if you don't know that a problem is going to happen and it happens, yeah, sure, you're going to go into reactive mode. But it depends on how long you've been in logistics and all the different problems that you've seen. You look at them and you try to portray that to new individuals that are walking in the door and working for you. That's about what I always say. You can lead them to the water, but don't force them to drink it. Let them drink that water on their own, but get them to start thinking about those what ifs. So when it happens, they know, the process to get to where they need to be.
I like that a lot. So I'll ask you another question as well, right? Because you're in that mindset, you're in that planning, whether strategic or tactical. Is that the time to get a mentor?
Of course. I mean, of course, you want to be that mentor. You want to be that coach. You want to be able to give them the deliverables that they need in order to be successful. How does that happen? You're interacting with them. You have the open door policy as a manager. You hope and you pray that they walk into your door multiple times during the day. If they don't, something's wrong. You are not training them well. You want them to start thinking, to say, hey, you know what, Mr. Dickinson, what should I do with this? I ran into this problem. Boom, that's what you want. You want that interaction, right? And then if you don't have the answers, because we don't all know the answers, but you know who to go to get that answers, you go to that next person and you ask him, hey, can you help Rob, man? He has this really, really good question, and that shows them the support of the department, that everybody's in it to win it. They're not holding back and keeping secrets, so to speaking. They're interacting. They feel comfortable speaking to their associates that they work with, and that's how that's how you build a really good working rapport, and you start seeing the benefits from doing that, almost immediately. You set that mindset for the department. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, I love that you said that because a phrase that I learned in this industry was the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Peace.
So if you go in there, you ask questions, like, we always kind of say, hey, there's no dumb questions. Like, always ask the questions because somebody's going to have that. And one thing that helped out is that when I was in the corporate environment was that we'd get there, we were 8 to 5, like 8 to 5, and then if we worked at home. Like, everybody would leave the office at 5 to go work from home. That was the thing. Nobody stayed after 5 o'clock. Everyone got in their car, and then if they worked from home, they worked from home. But anyways, one of the things is that we would work from 8 to 10, and then 10 to I think 11, we'd meet in the conference room, just kind of recapping. Hey, how's the day been going? What kind of things are you seeing? What kind of opportunities are you having? And DJ always kind of brings up like mindset is everything. And good morning, DJ. I kind of want to say that. What does a mindset look like if you're not all there, you're not all in yet? Because I think mindset could be changed as you kind of go along. And you're not supposed to watch like a Goggins video and be like, I'm gonna punch a wall. You want to kind of focus on that discipline. But we'll talk about discipline next week when we talk about prospecting. But how do you break a mindset? Because something just came up into my mind, Jeff, and I want to ask you this. What if the last position that you worked at, you were let go, you were laid off or you were fired or something like that, and you're going into a new company and your mindset is a little bit anxious, it's a little bit bruised. What would you recommend from there?
Don't take it to heart, number one. Number two, you have to, if you are the manager of that person, let's just say you are the manager of that person, you have to be a damn good listener, because that's what's going to open up the doors to the mindset that they're currently in. And you've got to be on the, being a manager in logistics, you have to be like a psychologist. And I say it all the time, almost like chameleon-like, where you can shed many different skins and colors, because you're managing different personalities. No two people are the same. So the way that you address one doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to address the other individual in the same method, right? So you have to be very clear and understanding and be a very good listener, because that's how you are going to be able to develop each and every individual there. They're all different, and then they'll all talk about it, and sometimes, and it definitely happened to me, is that you have a new person on board and he goes talk to another associate. That associate comes in and says, that guy's not leaving me alone. He's asking all these questions and everything. Boom, there's a problem, because he's trying to do his job. But now you have to set the correct mindset of talking to that. Hey, you know what? It's not all about you. It's all about us. What are the questions? Here's what I recommend, So that's about creating the right, I wouldn't say the individual mindset. I would say the department mindset. You all want them on the same page.
Yeah. And, that comes with even the people prior to the new person coming in. And, that comes with camaraderie, being there and being that mindset. And from my way that I'm kind of thinking about this is like from like the reps point of view, and you're bringing in like the manager's point of view, which is amazing, because like we get those two, because they're going to be different, right? Because if, as a manager, if somebody comes in, they've already got that, like you said, week 1, week 12, they've already got their goals that they want to see this person individualized too. But as a rep coming in, you're with yourself, you're thinking, okay, well, how am I going to make the biggest impact to be like, hey, if this company is right for me, and that's the question that you're trying to answer within like those 12 weeks that you're there. As a manager, Jeff, what are, I don't want to say, we won't get into like green flags or red flags, because at the end of the day, you truly don't know a person until they kind of pick up that phone, which will be for next week. But what are some things that you kind of look for that you're like, okay, well, I can help this person, I can give this a little bit more advice, rather than saying, hey, this is an open door? Which ways are you proactive as a manager?
Well, I get that. Definitely going out there in the trenches. I'm not going to sit in my office and just twiddle my fingers. I was always a doer. I always got out there and mingled and were on the floor and talking to the carriers and everything like that. So what would I do? I would grab the individual. Come on, man, we're going out on the floor. Let's go to the dock. Here's John. He's with CSX or whatever it is. And introduce him. We're trying to build camaraderie. We're trying to build those partnerships. Partnerships can be external as well. I want that person to feel good in that role. So you go out and you introduce them. You have them be your little shadow, and follow around, and then give them that opportunity, or her, to ask those questions. What's that? Why are they doing that? How come? And then they ask there's never a stupid question. Then they start asking you questions, and that's how you're able to help them out. If they're quiet as a mouse and they don't ask anything, you got to start really prying a lot. That's that determination. That's that drive. That person that you have in the right role must ask questions. Must ask questions, or you as a manager need to prompt an answer to a question, to get them engaged so you can understand, and it could be hard, it could be simple, but you don't want to give them a real hard question right off the bat, because you want to develop them to get to those things where they can come in and say, hey, we had this problem, but I resolved it by doing this. Boom, man, you've done your job, because now they're on their own and they kind of figured it out. And then they're going to start learning and learning and learning. That's what my bosses did for me. Just because you're a manager, I have to throw that in there. You're always reporting to somebody up on a C level, at least I did. And you're having the same conversations that you're having with your associates. And if you have a good leader, not a follower, you're going to take that and then you're going to develop that with your associates, because it's the best practices for that department. And that's what made me the person that I am, because I had those right mentors and developers and coaches that helped me to see that water, to drink it and not go hungry, So that's the key thing, So it's the trickle down effect, You only can present what was presented to you, right? And if it works for you and you know where you are, and you're going to take those best practices and you're going to share them. You're not going to keep them to your heart and not do that, because it's not beneficial to your department that you're running. And then everything that happens in that department, guess what? It falls back on you. Yeah. So, I mean, you have to really think about it. It's not just like going in there and just throwing something to the wall to see what sticks. No, man, there's a method to the madness.
Yeah, and every company is going to be different, right? They're going to have their strengths and their weaknesses, right? They're going to be, hey, maybe I'm an LTL carrier, or maybe I'm a truckload, or certain geographical. So it's up to like the rep to kind of understand, like, hey, what those strengths, like you said, the SWOT thing, understand what actually works for all of them. And I think even from the leader mindset, Jeff, I think being adaptable and flexible, because you can't say, hey, maybe this rep A has done 1 million and he's been there for a year already, and then you've got rep C coming in and expecting that they're going to get to that level. No, everyone has individual progress, and giving them that constant feedback, and that comes with understanding, going through that training process that we talked about last week, because that's where you truly get to see a person, how they kind of interact, how they are with people. And things like that, even like things like coming into the office on time. Are they coming in 5 minutes earlier? Are they late? Are they taking an extra smoke break? So those are like very, very key factors that.
Yeah, I was about to ask you before, Ryan. I was like, what place did you work in when you checked in at 8 and checked out at 5? I was about to say, what?
Yeah, no, that was actually the best way. Everywhere I've actually worked is like that. So just so we're clear on this, it wasn't that we all stopped. It was just they understood that everybody needed to like leave the office at 5 so that they can get their commute. Yeah, so it's like from there. So it worked. It worked for all of us. But I think as we're kind of going into this week, Jeff, that's the goal that we want to get, is that, hey, you finished your training already. You're getting into your mindset. So you're talking to your family. You're talking to your people around you. You're talking to various different people to understand what you're trying to do before, like I said, before you pick up that phone call. Sorry, before you pick up that phone, before you start writing that email, getting into things. At what point, and I know maybe you're probably not a big fan of it, but have you ever done anything like an elevator pitch to yourself, kind of practice role playing by yourself before you actually got into it?
When you think about it, every day. I mean, just think about that, right? So you're in logistics. You love what you do. You go to a bar and somebody says to you, hey, what do you do for an avocation? Boom. What are you doing? You're pitching. You are pitching. It's not scripted. It's just right off the cuff with a couple beers in you, right? I mean, you're just going to start rattling it off. And next thing you know, I mean, when it rolls off your tongue, instantaneously, and you don't have to think. That's the best way to talk to a prospect. When you deliver something, make believe that you're in a bar, or you're meeting a new friend's friend, and they don't know you from a hole in a wall. That's the same approach that you do it. Be you. No one else, just say it the way you would if you were talking just to a person, in a supermarket. It doesn't matter, because you're being real. Yeah. You're being honest, not just to yourself, but to them. And that's the best approach. There's nothing forced about it. You're not hungry. You're just saying, this is what I do. I've been in it for blah, blah, blah. I mean,
it's just like another question, right? It's
you don't realize it. You do it every freaking day.
Yeah, 100%. And, we're going to end off on that one as we're kind of coming up to time here, as we're got a jam-packed week for you. Jeff, this is amazing. This is a great start. I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. It's going to be impactful week. And, we've got, what's the other 20%? 20% is what? Dog hair. Dog hair. Scott was asking what the other 20% is. But yeah. So I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning. Yeah, exactly. It's ironic. I was ironing the shirt this morning, and then there was dog hair on it. So I was like, of course, there's dog hair on my shirt. But with that being said, Jeff, I want everybody to catch that replay at 12 and 3 p.m. Eastern time. I'll be hitting the replay on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Facebook, and Twitter as well. The last one there. Tomorrow, we've got an impactful episode for you as we kind of go through this week. Let us know what you guys have liked about us kind of doing these themes, and if there's any certain topics within within planning and execution that you kind of want us to talk about. So, Jeff, it was a pleasure. See you tomorrow. Let's have some fun.
Thanks.